Hi guys, welcome to the kit breakdown. This is the special we've all been waiting for. We are in Newcastle to celebrate the release of the home kit. It's been out there quite a few months now already, but we're going to take the time to have a look at it and really get into the nuts and bolts of it. Rob?
All right, Craig, how you doing, mate? All right?
Bloody hell, you've grown some hair there, son.
Yes, but I've been in Turkey, mate. Yeah. Just before I come back, just for this special, really.
All right, brilliant. You sound a little bit different as well, mate. But anyway, so we've got this type of Rob person with us now to review the kits with it. We've also got a couple of special guests as well. We've got Amy and Tom, who are avid Newcastle United fans, and who better to talk us through what we're going to do today. So welcome to the kit breakdown, Newcastle United. Hi guys, welcome to the kit breakdown. This is the special we've all been waiting for. We are in Newcastle to celebrate the release of the home kit. It's been out there quite a few months now already, but we're going to take the time to have a look at it and really get into the nuts and bolts of it. Rob?
All right, Craig, how you doing, mate? All right?
Bloody hell, you've grown some hair there, son.
Yes, but I've been in Turkey, mate. Yeah. Just before I come back, just for this special, really.
All right, brilliant. You sound a little bit different as well, mate. But anyway, so we've got this type of Rob person with us now to review the kits with it. We've also got a couple of special guests as well. We've got Amy and Tom, who are avid Newcastle United fans, and who better to talk us through what we're going to do today. So welcome to the kit breakdown, Newcastle United. So, Rob, I'm going to talk to you about the home kit. We're going to go through Replica and we're going to go through the Pro kit, and we're going to ask these wonderful people what they think of them. First glance, as I said, when I did my little intro, when I first saw them being released, I thought they are something special. What they've done with the badge on the Pro kit, I think is absolutely amazing. So from first glance, and now when I've got these out the bag with all the Champions League badges on, by the way, boys and girls, absolutely was blown away by it. And I've got to thank Subside Sports for this as well, because they've gracefully supplied us with all the kits that you kind of see today. And we're going to get into the Replica kit as well and see how they compare with each other. We're going to get into a debate around the price of the kits, because lo and behold, if you want to buy the Pro kit, you're going to be fielding out 140 quid by the time you've got your Champions League badges on. Exactly.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Long sleeves around about 85 quid. You've got the short sleeve Replica for about 60, 65, something on that region. We're also going to get into a debate around fakies. I've just come back from Dubai, so we're going to do a little bit of a fakie special around Newcastle United as well. So, what are you thinking?
Straight away, as soon as it came out, just beautiful, really, isn't it? I think it's that electric blue that makes it pop. Lots of rumours, weren't there, online about what it was going to be. We were going to get the Grandad collar back. Was it going to be a retro remake? And it is got elements of that, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
I feel like it's what we like to call, I think it's just like it's like a reminiscent of a shirt that's gone and done very well. I forget what you call it. It's almost like a reimagining of that shirt.
Yeah.
I just think it just is striking, isn't it? I think without that blue, it would still be nice, but the fact that they've got that in there just makes it pop more. And I think it looks so good on the field as well. And yeah, it's just gone down so well with fans as well, you know. I feel like the launch of it last year with the original Adidas, their first foray back with Newcastle went down really well. But I think this one, it's their second season, isn't it now? They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They get it, and this is almost
second
like
album syndrome.
Second album, yeah. It really is. And it's got everything you want, nice little details in it. And yeah, it's just everything that a Geordie wants, I believe.
Yeah, Amy, what are you thinking about the Sheppard's check? Are we liking that?
You know what? My only criticism is, I'm not sure whether this is Adidas wanting to hone into the whole Sheppard's crest, you know, around the heritage of the city, or is this Adidas just dipping their feet in the water to start mixing up those stripes.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen it with Juventus where
Yeah.
they had the black and the white.
Yeah.
You know, this season it's was it this season or last season where it very much looks like, you know, a barcode.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love it, but because there's only so much you can do with black and white. So it is nice, you know, it's a nice touch, but I'm just edging on the side of caution that is this the start of them
Something
dipping
playful.
their toes just to see if they can,
I
you know,
certainly hope
fan
so.
reaction.
I really want that though.
Could you imagine the meltdown though?
I know, but for me, what's really important is we have controversy and we have ideas, because if you think about it, back in the 80s, we'd have never had that original NUF badge, you know, the NUFC.
Yeah.
I mean, if you'd have thought about releasing that now, everybody would just go absolutely mental. But what Adidas have managed to do with Juve for me is they've pushed the boundaries.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I really do.
Yeah.
So I kind of hope it is. I think what's interesting with this though, and if I get more into the technical side of it all, when I saw it on screen, I was thinking, you know what, this is going to be really beautiful. But actually, when I've got it in my hand, the fabric is okay. But what's really disappointed is the fact that it's actually printed on the Pro kit. So if I go back to, and this is actually my son's Puma kit, which if you look at this fabric, so basically to show everybody at home, this is a fabric that's actually been knitted. So it goes onto a machine and it's basically knitted. So you get the quality on the inside and the outside, and the colours are really quite in depth and true. And if you notice how they've actually created that structure, it's almost like what Adidas have done here. So I feel like they've hit the post a little bit. And as much as, bearing in mind you're paying £120 for this before you've got your badges on. But if you look at the inside of this, it's just basically a printed piece of polyester. So don't get me wrong, Adidas, it's a slight criticism, but overall, I think the kit looks absolutely tremendous.
Is that the
But-
same on the replica too?
So on the replica, it's exactly the same, yeah. So the fabrics aren't quite the same. So here where they've got, obviously, you know, the jacquards that are going through so if you see these little details, this is where you're paying a lot of your money on, because this is not an easy technology to put into fabrications. So the difference between that and the replica is clearly it's a slightly cheaper fabric. It doesn't have the same details on it. But I think the big notice, and I'd probably like to draw in Tom here for this one. So if you look at the necklines, Tom, you've got the replica shirt that takes the black all the way around.
Yeah.
Whereas on the home kit, if you look at that, it actually stops. And I think that's a really nice little detail there. Whereas if you get it into the replica, it actually goes all the way around. And visually from a distance, they actually look really different.
Which I've got to say, Craig, I think, in my humble opinion, I think that this, for me, in comparing the replica and the pro version, I think this is the one thing they've got right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I prefer the black going all the way around.
As opposed to this.
As opposed to that. Just,
That's interesting.
Just as an aesthetic kind of comment, I just think I don't know whether it's because I'm a fan and wearing it in the stadium.
Yeah.
It looks nicer, maybe for tech-wise for the players.
Well, I would say from a you know, the interactions that I've had with players before, and we've all seen it where they're cutting down into their shirts, it tends to be on those necklines that are a little bit clunky.
Well,
so I would maybe hazard a guess that's probably why they've gone down this route. So
Possibly.
it's a little bit lighter.
But Arsenal haven't though. They've got the similar shirts on the Pro and the.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely
so
changed
right.
anything.
No, they haven't. That's a really
It's almost
good...
like it's not finished.
Yeah.
As
I agree.
opposed to that one, which
I agree.
does look like that's a finished
Yeah.
article. That's almost like, you know, a takedown of it. Whereas I did not realise until you mentioned it now. It's a different design, isn't it?
I have to say, I think if they'd carried the blue on all the way around, then we'd be looking back at the nice 90s kits where you've got the 97, 98 one, the
Yeah.
home kit where you've got the white going all the way around, which I love.
Yeah.
And I just, on that point, which I wanted to say, I think the blue, electric blue, as you said, Josh.
I think it's that. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
No, I do really like it. And I think it reminds us of, what was the word you said?
Like a reimagination.
Reimagination of the 2000, the last brown ale kit and the first NTL,
Yeah.
they had the blue, and I think they're cult favorites.
I think that's where
In
it's
But
come
they did
from,
it
isn't
on
it?
the 2008 and 2008
And then they did
as
the
well.
blue,
Yeah,
they went
had
later on with the-
like the piping. or
Yes,
whatever.
exactly.
They
But
play-
I think
They played around as well with different secondary colours. They had gold for a little while,
Yeah.
didn't they? That they were
That was
like,
on the
sneaking in.
2005
It's an
kit,
interesting
yeah.
point though. When I'm looking at that as you're talking, I'm looking at that electric blue going down the side of that there, and I'm really getting into the finer detail here. But as a designer, there's something quite disturbing about this area here. So if you look at, that profile, now really I'm geeking out here. So I mean, most people wouldn't even bat an eyelid. But when I'm looking at this coming in here, so you've got the stripe coming down, you've got this panel here, you've got that panel there, you've got this stripe coming round, which is then creating a non-regular stripe down the side. It all just feels a little bit clumsy. Whoa. Hold on a minute. We just want to interrupt these proceedings. We would like to talk to you about the Spark Design Academy, which, as most of you may know, we offer courses from 2 proven industry experts about how to get a leg up in the design industry. Our courses focus on football kit design, but it offers so much more than that. We tell you how to design football kits, how to present those football kits, what we'd expect to see with your research, and so on and so forth. We really do give you the inside track that we would be looking for as creative directors. So sign up to the course today. There's a special offer for this month only. You'll get it for 75 quid. Yes, 75 quid. So sign up today. Don't be shy, like, subscribe, and get over to Spark Design Academy. So I just wonder if, for example, if that had have been white, now don't get me wrong, I know most fans would go absolutely ballistic because it would make the back of the shirt very different. But if that was all white and that went round to white, I wonder if that might have been a little bit more aesthetically pleasing on the eye. But you would then be completely changing the design because then you wouldn't really need that that seam detail in there. But I think overall, my opinion is, from where we've been, this is the second release from Adidas. It's a great looking kit. And again, I've got to go back to the crest, but, we've got lots of crests on here. But that, for me, is just an absolute thing of beauty.
It's got that shine to it too.
And compared, Craig, as well to the replica, I think the white outline, Amy, as you were saying,
Yeah, it's
just
cheapens it.
cheap. Yeah,
It does.
it looks cheap. It looks tacky.
Definitely.
And there's in the whole kind of debate over this new crest.
Oh God, yeah.
And that's kind of an issue for me that I think on a lot of merch, a lot of shirts, the crest can because there's so much going on, it cheapens the shirt. Whereas with this,
it's premium,
it's
isn't it?
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I
It's the best
absolutely love
version.
it.
Best version of the club crest.
And I said that the first time I saw it, I thought, Adidas, you've done an absolutely superb job of that.
And what is the
so
application
nice.
of it as well? Is it
So it's basically heat transfer, but it's basically a plastic patch that's actually then just heat applied onto the garment. But what we can do now is the technology and the detail, because if you actually get really close to that badge, the detail that's on that in the different kind of directions that you've got all the different linear lines in there and they're picking up the gold. There's so much actual detail. They've almost tried to create like an embroidered modern version of it, if
it
you
really
like.
pops, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think if again, going back to one of the old Castor kits, this again is more of a woven patch that they've done, but again, it's heat applied. And I think this is really quite interesting because again, the level of detail that's gone into that is also really quite nice. So I probably am in agreement, Amy, where I would say what we've ended up on our replica kit, I would probably say that the Castor one was slightly better.
I would say so.
Stitching, it just...
What I noticed as well, Craig, sorry, quickly, Amy, diverting from your badge point, at the back is you've got the mesh on the Pro kit, and on this replica on the side is just fabric.
Yeah.
So obviously that's missing a point.
Yeah, so I mean, you are going to get that, to be fair though, Tom, because of the difference between replica and Pro.
No,
I mean,
of course, yeah.
The fabrications that you're going to get on this style versus the home kit are going to be very different. They've got to drive a price point with this.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting point. So I'll bring Amy in here, right? So Amy's come armed with a beautiful, beautiful
Wow.
That is the king of collars.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It is.
this was when Adidas, in my opinion, were doing some interesting colours. It was around the time when I think they released the Ecru shirt for Liverpool,
For Liverpool,
as well.
yeah.
And for me, this is a Watto kit. Stevie Watson, I remember he did the advertising campaign for this. I think it was with Rob Lee. And it might have been Lee Clark as well. The
Right.
three of them did the advertising campaign. I loved this kit, by the way. I thought it was the best kit ever to wear with a pair of jeans. But Amy, you had a point. So as you can see, guys and girls, this is all labelled up. We've got some prices on here. So talk us through this price debate that we've got.
So this shirt is priced at $27.99.
Oh, beautiful
which
times.
Obviously, it's a large boys as well, just to add. So this is a child size. So if you factor in inflation since 1996, I did check the little calculator, a few of them for reference.
So solid facts here, guys.
That's the equivalent of, in 2025, paying between £58 to £60 for a shirt, which is what you would pay for a large boys now.
And say, what does that compare to today? It's about the same.
So, you know, there seems to be this myth that suddenly football shirts are becoming, you know, it's outpricing fans.
Yeah.
It's always been expensive. Owning a football shirt has always been expensive. The only difference is, obviously now, it's the amount of shirts that are being
And I
booked
think
out by the club.
that's where lays the point.
If you look at Napoli in their first season,
yeah.
the 13 shirts they brought out that year. It's
Yeah,
like,
I think it was even more by the end of
think
it
it
because they
probably was,
brought out
wasn't
bloody
it?
Well, they had
Christmas
specials
ones,
left, right, and centre. They had a Halloween one. They had all the rest of it. So yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's interesting because it's a conversation that me and Rob here get asked all the time because everybody just seems to think that football kits are so cheap to produce. The reality is, and I'm not going to lie, that the football kits are fairly inexpensive to create. Having said that, there's a lot of time and effort going
the
into
wing
them.
to wing process.
Yeah,
isn't it?
because everybody just sees the fabric, the end result, but you've got to pay someone like myself to design it. You've got to pay someone else to develop it, someone to source it. So there's a whole huge amount of team behind what we do. Then you've got to get to the factories, you do fit sessions, you do all sorts of stuff. So that process that you go through is quite long.
Can you remember that iconic photograph of the 95-97 shirt being sewn? by
Oh
everybody
yeah,
in
the Newcastle one.
And
Yeah.
and that like now is obviously redundant in that way, but the amount of people
Which is
that were
women just with piles
sewing
of
the
them.
shirts,
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, and that effectively costs money. But the other thing you've got to think about is, as you touched on, it's the amount of times that we create these kits now, which we'll get onto that in a second because I've got a huge bugbear on that one. But you've also got to think about the advertising campaigns and everything else that goes around this. When we signed Adidas, everybody was like, oh my God, we've signed Adidas. Yeah. Fantastic, brilliant, right? So the price of the Castor shirt versus the price of the Adidas shirt have not changed, right? So they're both exactly the same. What we get with Adidas is global appeal.
yeah,
Yeah.
Instant global appeal. We get doors opened all over the place.
Available
We're now
everywhere.
one of the best-selling shirts in the Middle East. You know, the plan is to expand globally. So we'll find our football kits everywhere. We were never going to get that with Castor, with the deepest respect, where they are as a current brand. Great brand. Well done, lads. But that's not where they're currently at, where as Adidas give us exposure to so much more. Give us exposure to players. You know, you'll see that suddenly Adidas players start moving to Adidas teams, and that's historically been the case. So it opens up a whole plethora of other opportunities. So I think when people look at what we're paying for, we're not just paying for a football kit, we're paying for everything that Adidas offers.
It comes with,
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting one. But going back to Amy's point around the fact that we're releasing so many kits, this is, for me, a major issue. And I really implore all of the brands to take note of what some of the lesser clubs are doing. I think it's Charlton who are now looking at releasing their kits on a longer cycle.
I think so, yeah. You've got Luton, you've got Brentford as well, and Wickham.
Yeah.
I think of the other ones.
How long are the cycles supposed to last? A couple of years?
2 years.
Was it?
Yeah, well, if I go back to my time at Nike, you know, we would so for example, the Man United kits that we've got in front of us, you know, this Man United kit was the second season, I believe. And when we designed this, the intention is that would then rotate with the home kit. So we released the home kit, that stayed for 2 years. Then we released the second kit and so on and so forth. And to be fair, we've also got the Invincibles kits on. In fact, Josh, you're just on top of it there. So that was actually released in whenever it was, 2002.
2005, wasn't it?
Was it 2004?
Well, the Invincible season was 0304.
That's right. So for me,
that was the
as
Highbury
releasing
one,
that as
wasn't
a
it? Yeah.
designer, it was probably around 2002 when we were presenting that. But the point that I'm making is when we released that kit was for 2 years. The away kit that went with that was a navy blue one that the lad called Matt Tressarden did the graphic for that. And then off the back of that, we then rotated with the new kit, which is actually the yellow one there, Tom. Now, that's when those kits went invincible. So if they'd have changed that kit would not be the Invincibles kit as we now know it.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting because I've had a lot of debate with people, and I'd love to hear your comments online, by the way. Do we change them? Do we stick to them? I'd love to hear what you're thinking. But I've had some interesting conversations with a couple of other fans of the channel, and their point of view is they want a new kit each season because they might have had a nightmare of the season beforehand. I mean, if you're a Man United or a Tottenham fan, you can't wait to get out of that kit from last season. And, so I can see that. And I think from a player's perspective, that must play on their psyche as well. I mean, again, imagine that you're one of those teams that has just lost your UEFA final and you played in your kit that's for next season. You're like, oh God, I don't even really want to put this on.
You make a good point about that as well. Like some iconic moments happen with the shirt that you're wearing that season, and you kind of want to celebrate that into the second season with it.
Yeah, well, I think, I've got to say actually, I think if you're changing the kit each year, I don't have a problem with that. And as a designer, you said, Craig, that then brings problems because designers are just chucking kits out because they have to without actually really caring for it. I think I don't have a problem with doing a kit every season. I agree with the 2-year cycle. That is a good idea, but I think there needs to be the love in the kit. And not just with this. I've got to say, I think Adidas with this year's Newcastle, they've done something that we've not seen in 20 years. Really, I think between the Sheppard's check stripes and the blue, the electric blue, and I know it was 10, 15 years ago. But I just think there's clearly been a lot of love and thought put into this, while the last 10, 15 years has just been a black and white stripe. And I know there's been variation with in the early 2010s, but
well, I think
it's different.
and I think what also happens in, speaking from my own experience of working for a lot of these brands, what you tend to find is, like, for example, if Adidas, if Castle was still with Newcastle, or if it was Puma with Newcastle, Newcastle would be one of their top teams, literally top teams. So they would get all of the attention that they would need, which is why I think a lot of fans, like the likes of Macron and Umbro, when your fan base might be, say, West Ham, for argument's sake, if you go into Nike as West Ham, you are not going to the top of the food chain. I'm sorry, West Ham fans, but that is a fact. Much the same as Newcastle, to be fair. We've gone into Adidas and we're not right at the top like a Real Madrid and Arsenal and say Manchester United. Although I do think Manchester United will probably drop down a few.
It's seeming that way, doesn't it?
Definitely. So it'll be interesting to see, what people's opinions are when it comes to the level of attention that some of our clubs get. But I do think that's one of the challenges that you have is as a designer. You're basically going in, you're designing all of these kits, and because of the way that the brand kind of has those clubs sit, there's a certain amount of attention that goes to them. I think what we're seeing with both Newcastle and Aston Villa at the minute is it's like the new toy.
I completely
so they're
agree.
doing some really great stuff.
And I love it. I think it's really good. And I think, quickly going back to an old point that we said, is they're just tapping back into, I think Amy, you said, into the heritage and fabric of the city.
Yeah.
So Well, the blue always reminds me of the star on the Brown Ale logo and
Yeah.
the 5 founding breweries, and it's just
Yeah.
the history and sort of going back to the old, which I like. I like the contemporary modern design, but with a splash of retro vintage in it.
Do you think there's like a tendency to always try and tell a story in a football shirt as well? Like, do you feel
there should be?
Yeah. Now that's why I went to Hummel early in the year just to their HQ, and I got a bit of time with their designers, and I just had this thing in my mind where you get these campaigns come out, and it's always like from our past, you know, and this famous trophy we won there, elements of this, you know, we've gone back and we've like, is there enough going forward? Like, can a shirt be designed just because it looks good? Does it have to have that storytelling element of, oh, well, this is this from this fountain, and this is from this famous place in Newcastle? And do you think a shirt can be designed just because it looks good and not have that storytelling?
Shirt, in a way or a third, I think that's when, you know, the designers can start experimenting and exploring. But I think that home shirt, having something that's, you know, important to the city, important to the people, and something that fans can really hone in on, because it represents, you know, the black and white.
Yeah.
It represents the club, it represents the city. So I like, you know, when, especially with like, for instance, I think Adidas have been quite poor the last 2 seasons with Man U, but the third shirts have got so right. Third shirts have always, and I always feel as though that seems to be where they can experiment that bit more, and obviously the trefoil helps as well.
Do you remember, Amy, the goalkeeper kit in the late 90s where with the Tyne skyline?
Yes, yeah.
And I just think, and I know that was a goalkeeper kit, but I just think they had enough. Was it the second, back then they had a second goalkeeper kit, like where they could completely play around, couldn't they?
Yeah.
I think it was.
But Rangers had that same kit as well, obviously.
But with their skyline?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
That would have been so much better if it was Newcastle skyline. Well, it's an interesting point, because from my perspective, you know, kind of sitting in those seats. So to answer your question around, can we still do beautiful kits and still have stories behind you? Well, I'd be looking to fire the designer if we couldn't arrange to do that.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, if you're going to be able to design a football kit, you've got to be able to bring provenance and storytelling to that. Because the challenge that you have is, you know, if you don't bring that, you can't get people excited about it. And now a lot of people would argue, yeah, but I don't need to know all that. I just need a great looking kit. Well, yeah, you're going to get a great looking kit. It's just, if I'm going to go to a marketing team and I'm going to sell this into Newcastle United, I want to make sure I've got something that I'm going to hang my hat on, if you like. So I will be looking into the provenance of the team. I will be looking into where I want to take them in the future. I will be looking to ultimately make a garment sell. Of course I'm going to do that. That's like number one priority. But then also I want to make sure the players can play in it. So when we did Cool Motion and all that sort of stuff. So all of those things have to be put on the table, and you have to be able to create football kits that are absolutely stunning. And the only ever time I've role reversed that is when I did an England kit a number of years ago, and it was an away kit. I can't remember the year. Well, we'll get that and we'll edit that in, I'm sure. But it was the one that David Hay released. It was a navy blue kit with like a light blue collar. And that was the only time that I actually started with the fan first, because normally I'll always start with the players. So I'm like, right, how do I get you the ball faster? How do I make it lighter? How do I make the neckline sit nicely so you're not having to cut it and all those sorts of things? Then I'm thinking, right, I'm going to make it look beautiful and the fans are going to love it. Well, this time I went the other way around. So then we re-engineered it back into so that the players could play in it. So a good designer can do all of that and come from any angle you want and create really beautiful looking kits. So for me, I think it's all there, and it's all got to be encompassing in the designs that you're doing.
You're right.
So,
and I remember Kappa brought out, I think it was the Italy shirt back in 2000. And you make a point about how you make a shirt sometimes for the players, can it run fast and things like that. I remember they did this thing where they had that elasticity in the shirt.
Yeah, it was. I think it was called the combat shirt.
That was the one,
wasn't it?
And like they then told people why they'd done that, and that was
ref knows when they
Yeah, when
actually,
it's being pulled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and also the player, if he's in a tight proximity and he can still pop a shot off, even
Yeah.
though his shirt's being
That's
pulled.
correct.
And
Because that was the kit, Josh, that was released in, because I think the first tournament I played in it, big tournament, was the 2002 World Cup. And that was the two kits that went out there, Cool Motion and the Italy kit was being pulled.
You know, funny story about that kit.
Go for
I remember
it.
as a kid in the Metro Centre, it was one of the first shirts on, you know, the mannequins. And obviously with the mannequin being, you know, like, and it was just so fitted.
Yeah.
And I always wanted that shirt. And obviously growing up, we didn't have a great deal of money, you know, I got the one full kit, that was it. And I remember always just being in awe, obviously seeing it during the tournament.
Oh, it's incredible.
And then when I started getting into kits, it was one of the first kits that I wanted to buy because I was like, I've got my money now. This is a shirt that I've always wanted to own.
I deserve that.
Yeah, so I bought it. So it's
Is
you
that
know,
is that your
curves.
is that your number
and
one kind of from childhood?
It was. I
kit?
wouldn't say it was my number one. It was the number one that I wanted to own. But I practically had to jump off the bed to get into it.
Yeah,
and obviously
exactly.
it wasn't designed for tits and hips at all. So
No,
it's
well, I think
never
that's the
been
thing,
worn
isn't
again.
it? It was one of those kits where, because I remember when I got it, because at the time I was obviously working heavily in the industry. And the first thing I noticed is, fuck me, this is really heavy.
Yeah.
It
Is
was
it
such a
really?
heavy shirt, yeah, because there's so much elastane in it, which is obviously elastane, for those that don't know, is what makes the product stretch. But it actually comes at a weight. So the amount of elastane that was in that, it created a really heavy kit.
Was it one layer, Craig, or was it double?
It was one layer.
Okay.
But I think, if I remember rightly, because then going forward a few more years, we were at Puma at the time, and I was working with Rob on the Italy kits. And one of our things was getting the players to the ball faster. So we were actually weighing them.
Yeah.
So we weighed them when they were just dry, but then we weighed them when they were wet. And oh my God, I don't know how those Italian players actually played in that kit, because when it got wet, it almost tripled in weight because it was just holding so much moisture.
Was that the Italy where you wanted it to look like the kind of Clark Kent with the superhero?
No, well, it was still that combat.
shirt, right?
But then, yes,
Oh, right,
then when we went into that, but by that point, when we did the Clark Kent one, so that was the 2006 World Cup winning kit, which Rob Warner designed, by the way. So
cheers,
that,
Craig.
yeah, it's all right, mate. That hair's really good on you. So yeah, so that kit was basically, by that time, they changed to stretch woven,
Right.
which was the same fabric that we used in 2002 on the Nike kit. So they'd done a version of that, which was really good. Okay, so before I let you wonderful people go, I've got two more things I want to capture. So I want to catch your fakies, but I just want to go back to the whole Adidas making money, Nike, all the rest of it, profits, you know, making sure that that money goes back to consumers and so on and so forth. It's a really valid question to say, well, hang on a minute, Adidas are making record-breaking profits, so are Nike, you know, all these brands are making so much money. The reality is they have shareholders and they have to hit targets and they have to hit, you know, a certain value proposition. So, you know, that's what allows those brands to attract the best designers, attract the best developers, you know, get the best technologies into the business. And ultimately, their success is the fact that they're doing that really well, and because we want to buy the products. There's so much stuff that Adidas have done in that short term that they've been with us this time round. I mean, there's so much stuff that I want to buy because they're doing it so well.
Yeah.
You know, even like the retro kits that they brought out, the
leisurewear.
Teflon, the leisurewear, everything.
I mean, look at the stuff that Eddie is wearing on the touchline.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
You know?
It's superb.
I mean,
It's
Adidas are
superb.
churning out some spectacular stuff at the
Absolutely.
moment.
And people are buying it day in, day out.
Yeah.
There aren't pieces where people are saying, what is this? Or this is shit, or all the rest of it.
And I think that's, you know, and I really don't want to, you know, badmouth brands that we've had in the past, but we have had certain brands that we're not getting the badges on the right way around, or the kits are ripping really quickly, or, you know, the delivery on some of those products aren't good enough, and name sets are coming in and they're not even the right name sets. I think Adidas will probably suffer from a little bit of that as well, to some extent, but I think by and large, what we're paying a lot of money for is we'll get the product on time. You know, we've got global distribution. We've got the best talent in those design teams. We've got product that we want to constantly buy. Now, I can't answer that question as to why isn't a lot of their profit going back into the consumer's pocket? Well, you know, it's Adidas, you know, they're one of the biggest brands in the world. And I guess the same thing could be said with all of these big brands, whether it's Apple, whether it's Coca-Cola, BMW, name it, you know, but we've got one of the most premium sports brands, you know, supporting our team. And yeah, long may it continue. And if that means that we're not quite getting all of the money put back into our pockets.
You know what I think for me
all right.
is what's frustrating from what's frustrating from a fan's perspective is when you compare the replica to the authentic. So it was always called a replica because it was a replica of what you see in the players wearing on a pitch.
Yeah.
That replica versus the player issue, they are so far removed from each other.
Night and day.
Can you
innit?
even call that a replica?
Yeah.
So for me, so I love the collar on that,
Yeah.
but I love the badge on that. That now as a consumer, I'm going to want to buy both shirts.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And then I think it was it Nike who done it during the World Cup where they actually released the player issue for children,
Yeah.
which was, you know, ridiculously priced. But I think, you know, a lot of people do. And again, it seems to be another myth that people buy fake shirts because shirts are so expensive.
Yeah.
There will always be a demographic of people who will buy a fake shirt, even if it means saving £5.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you get some people who don't care the fact that it's fake. They don't care in, you know, the ethical side and, you know,
No,
everything
that's
that
true.
goes on, you know, kind of on these markets. If somebody can save £5, they're going to save £5. They're going to buy the cheapest option. So I think it will free up a lot of people who buy them, especially, you know, like for the kids. You know, I really, really feel, you know, for who've got 2 and 3 kids, you know, the cost of a full kit. But making shirts cheaper, I don't think will. There's always going to be
Yeah,
demand
there's always
for them.
gonna, yeah.
Did a little experiment actually. I had a Fluminense shirt, Under Armour did it, and just really liked it. Went and bought it quite a lot, about 60 quid. And one of my family members thought, I really like that, but I'm not paying 60 quid for it. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go on DHgate and buy it. Bought it, got delivered, brought it around the house. Side by side, fabric was better on the fake.
No.
Really?
Yeah. The Under Armour one, which was purely legit, come from the Fluminense store, thin, stretch it, and you can see the white through
Did
there.
you do the stretch test?
Did the stretch test on it and everything, like,
Right.
and then you got the fake, and I was like, my God, that is so much better. How has that happened? I guess sometimes, you know, these things do. I mean, we don't know what factory it came from. It might be that we just used a better fabric for it. Everything else, like, matched up. You could look at the intricacies and see actually, but, you know.
Well, on that note, why don't we get into fake time? So this part, I want to dive a little bit deeper into fakes. You know, we've just heard a little snippet as to, you know, Under Armour and so on and so forth. I think, Amy, you touched on a little bit, which is the ethical side of things. So for me, there's a big issue around that.
Yeah.
And that's a personal opinion.
Yeah.
I don't expect everybody to agree with it, but with someone that's kind of worked in the industry, I know what goes into a lot of this stuff. Unethical factories, you know, sweatshops, you know,
Money laundering.
I mean, the whole 9 yards. It is not a nice industry. And it's only my opinion, but I would rather not buy a kit
Yeah.
than support
Yeah.
those organizations.
Too right.
If we take that to one side and we take that out of the equation and we're just talking like for like products, the one thing that I think is really interesting, if anyone's out there and a fan of Barca, and a lot of the Spanish teams, for example, what they do is they have a subsidiary brand
fan
that
food,
creates their kind of more price
Yeah.
orientated kits. So Barca have a deal with their supplier of their playing kits with another supplier
Yeah.
that will create secondary product, if you like.
Was it Rogers in the 90s or something that?
Yeah, I think it might have been. Yeah, that's a good shout, that. Boy, Lee, you got a proper memory. So I think what's interesting is the way that we're doing it is we're feeding these organizations because we're probably not recognizing that there's an opportunity for the clubs to take ownership of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And being able to do that. So, you know, one of the suppliers that I work with in my day job, I know that they produce products in a very similar factory to where a lot of other brand names are being produced. So I'm not going to say, you know, who those brands are, but what they do is when they create those products, they're a lesser fabric. There's not as much detail on them. You know, it might just be a simple side seam, but visually from a distance, especially if we're talking about creating something for kids. I mean, in all honesty, when you're looking at this particular Newcastle kit, if I was just to put a side seam down there, I printed a blue stripe on there, you know, and it was black and white stripes. It had a nice badge application, and you give that to your kid. Your kid who's 4-year-old.
Oh yeah.
You know,
He's never going to know.
he's never going to know. He's going to be absolutely chuffed as ribbons. And I think that's where I think we can potentially be a little bit more creative. You know, and to be fair, if I go back to Baxter's kit earlier, you know, that's pretty much all it pretty much was. You know, there was a printed panel down the side which resembled the player's kit, but effectively it was a much more simplified version of the kit. Now, you know, you could argue I was still paying a few quid for that, but I think there's ways that we can do it. But the challenge that we've always got around fakes is, as we say, there's always someone who wants something cheaper. And when I'm looking at, it's not just cheaper, right? We're saying a fiver. I mean, in some cases, if you paid 120 quid for this bad boy, you can pretty much get a version of it which is very, very similar.
15
like
quid.
15
Yeah.
quid.
Absolutely. Social media is
Massive.
rife for it right now. You know, you go down your feed and you've got
Find
these and all that.
frustrating is, you know, obviously you touched on, you know, what obviously the production of a shirt, it's not purely profit. You know, when a club sells it, that's not all profit. You know, you get these people who are now, obviously they are picking the shirts up from, you know, whatever supplier, buying them in bulk, maybe he's paying £5-10 for them. They're then selling them on different selling platforms for 30 quid. And they're actually coming away with probably more of a profit than the suppliers or the club.
100%.
100%.
Nice business
100%.
model.
Yeah. But it's interesting though, because, you know, we've got a kind of fake here from one of our classic shirts from back in the 90s, you know. Absolutely loved this kit. But this is a great example of, you know, if you take this kit at first glance, you'd be like, yeah, you know, it could be the exact kit.
I did.
I thought it was the re-release because I thought that the re-release looks fake. I was so disappointed with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. But then, you see, for me, as soon as you pulled that out the bag, I'm like, I would never wear that. And it's because straight off the bat, I know the badges are completely different. And because I kind of geek out on all of this, I've realised that,
You're in a
you
safe
know,
space. You're in a safe space.
Star's not in the right place. It's cutting through the air. It's almost like a frisbee. You know,
I think the stripes are also really, really prominent on the difference with the width of
You
them.
can tell with the official garment as well, the Newcastle crest.
Can I just say,
You
when I
never
got
get
that
that
shirt,
right.
like the dream just started to fade very quickly.
Yeah.
I thought I'd struck gold. I'd got fat for £5 in a charity shop.
I remember seeing
it. I was going to go watch Guiseley FC one Saturday, and I thought, you know what I'll do? Before I do that, I'm going to go around all the charity shops, going down the rails. I see that, don't I? I just see that. I just see
your
that.
eyes lit up.
And I'm like, oh my God, could it be?
Mm.
And then I took it away, popped it on, because I didn't really know. I thought, is that the reissue? Has someone bought it and sort of chucked it out? And then I popped it on the old Twitter account. Josh, got some really horrible news for you, mate, but it's a fake. Sinking feeling.
probably the same thing happened. The guy bought it, was over the moon, and was like,
and then
right, that's
realised.
going straight to the charity shop.
I'm paying it forward, but backwards.
Similar as well on the original of the reissue does as well. There's a thread that runs along the inside. It should be on here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Craig, do you think when you said as soon as you saw that you just wanted to throw it away, you didn't want to see it? Do you think that's because you've got a trained eye for it?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I think the whole community does, right? I mean, you know, Amy spotted it straight away when she pulled it out of the bag. I think, you know, you do get a trained eye for it. But I mean, I think on that particular kit, it's fairly obvious that the badge is.
It's those stripes on the badge.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's the width as well. It's a bit narrower than it should be.
Squished.
I just think though, if you going back to your point about your kids, if you were buying them, for example, Baxters, if you were buying them just a kit to wear, if you're taking them to the game or just out to the park, I think the problem with fakes is that if they're not football mad, kit mad, they want the full pro kit and they know the fakes and they know the reals, you could pick this up, as you said, £5 in a charity shop, take it home, and they'd be happy.
Yeah.
So kids or adults, do you know what I mean? So I think you would get away with it, but then it comes to the point of ethics and all the rest of it, where.
Yeah. Well, I think we could talk all day about this, couldn't we, really? But listen, guys, I want to thank you so much for popping in. Tom, Josh, Amy, thank you so much. You've been absolute legends. I'm amazed how much Rob's grown hair, but I think...
I know. I tried to drop the accent quite quickly into it, but I can do it again if you'd like.
No, I think that's brilliant.
Do you think I should come back? Tell us in the comments.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow us. We'd love to hear from you. Have we got it right about fakes? What are you thinking? Do you agree? Do you disagree with the panel here? Have we got it right? Have you got it right? We'd love to hear from you. What about the pricing of our kits? Are they too high? What about the amount of kits that we're having a look at? Because we just talked about maybe a home, away, third, fourth, if you're in the Champions League. Sorry, Man United again. But if you think about that, that's just the tip of the iceberg. What about the training products? What about all the different types of training products? Everything else that we're being exposed to. Are you happy with that? Is there too much volume? What about the ethics of it? So please, like, subscribe, tell us what you're thinking, and thanks very much, and we'll catch you again on the Kit Breakdown soon. Just also like to say a big thank you to Ian Hush for allowing us to use his studios today. Thank you so much, pal. I owe you a couple of pints.